Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Build Series. I'm Lee Blickley of HuffPost, and I'm so excited because today I'm going to be joined by a very talented actor who actually started out as a very successful child star from Finding Neverland, August Rush, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We have the wonderful Freddie Highmore here today of The Good Doctor. Freddie just wrapped last year his role as Norman Bates on the beloved series Bates Motel, and right after that he just hopped into a new series called The Good Doctor, which has been airing since the fall and has a great viewership going, and I'm so happy that he's here to join us. On the show he plays Dr. Shaun Murphy, a young surgeon with autism and savant syndrome who proves everybody wrong. So let's take a look at a clip.
Dr. Clinton Ford out of Alberta developed an experimental resorbable material. It would allow us to expand her rib cage and create room to fit her heart inside.
An artificial sternum.
That would actually grow along with the patient.
This surgery isn't reversible. If it doesn't work, we can't just move her heart back to where it was.
It would allow her to have a life.
She has a life, and she'll be healthy as long as she stays out of crowds, doesn't hug anyone, or do anything where she might fall.
I get you're autistic. But I know even you realize when a patient cries and throws their phone against the wall, they're not happy with their current health.
There's no reason to make this personal.
There is if his medical judgment is biased.
I saw she was upset.
You saw it, but you didn't understand it.
You're very competitive. Are you trying to make Dr. Lim think I'm biased, or are you trying to undermine my confidence?
Wow, everybody welcome Freddie Highmore to the stage.
Hey, thank you.
We are so excited to have you here.
No, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Man, what a show to be a part of. So you wrapped Bates Motel last spring, I guess the season finale?
Yes, yeah, that's when it finished airing. It was actually 3 days. There were 3 days between finishing the last shot of Bates Motel and then meeting David Shaw and reading the script for this for the first time. So it was a pretty quick turnaround. But it was, yeah, I couldn't have been luckier, really.
What made you want to jump into this project right after finishing that? Was it the character that really drew you in?
Yes, I mean, I guess David Shaw offered me the chance to make good on all the people that I'd killed in a quite immediate way. So I felt like morally compelled to do this show. But it was the character more than anything. And I haven't seen someone like Shaun being portrayed in quite the same way and on television before, and certainly not on broadcast television like we've been doing. So there was a responsibility that we all assumed by taking on this character, and we wanted to get it right. But that was what was exciting to me too, and seemed like a great challenge.
Yeah, talk about kind of letting go of Norman Bates, who's very different from Dr. Shaun Murphy, and kind of transitioning into this character. Is that something that excited you, though, to play two totally different characters back to back?
Yes, I think in general you don't want to play the same roles again and again. And I think the biggest part of the decision with doing this too was having had such a great experience on Bates Motel and it going for 5 seasons. You realize what a commitment it is to sign on for a new show, and you need to make sure that it's the right choice. You don't want to be stuck doing something that you wouldn't want to do. And also you need to make sure that the character is rich enough to sustain multiple episodes and hopefully multiple seasons of storytelling. So I think those early conversations with David were about that and in how he envisioned Shaun changing over time and what his character arc would be, both in this first season and beyond. Because, of course, Shaun will always have autism, but it's how he will learn to adapt in this new environment that we have found him in, and how in this first season, I guess, his quest for independence, and at the end of the season, I guess it becomes about him searching for an understanding of who and when and why to trust people. And working those things out. So hopefully we see him grow and change.
Yeah. So how did you prepare to play Shaun? What kind of research did you do? Did you meet similar people who are going through similar things with autism and savant syndrome?
I've never met anyone quite like Shaun. I mean, I have people that I know in my personal life before the show even came along who have autism, and aside from that and the personal experience I already had, David and I both, went out and did a huge amount of research. I mean, of course, he had already done so, having written the pilot, but it was about trading documentaries back and forth, pieces of literature, and then an on-set consultant that we had too, who was able to make sure that we were portraying Shaun as accurately as possible. But I guess the biggest takeaway from the research was the fact that Shaun can never represent everyone who has autism. He can never represent everyone on the spectrum. And it's as much about finding what his particular personal idiosyncrasies were, and his interests and what makes him laugh, the people that we've seen him, maybe fall in love with in this first season. And that's as much going into creating this character as it is purely focusing on the fact that he has autism.
Yeah. You said, it's hard to represent everyone on the spectrum, but this has been such a powerful project for anyone who knows anyone with autism. My family, we have very close family friends who have children with autism. Does that mean a lot to you, though, to bring this show to the air and kind of represent, that community in a way that doesn't see themselves on screen?
Yes, that's obviously incredibly important and what we sought to do from the beginning. And I think the most touching and heartfelt, and meaningful responses that we've got have been from those people who either have autism themselves or know people very closely who do. And it makes it all worthwhile. I mean, David and I often say, it's more than a television show, and maybe it isn't. but we, you try and do the best you can, really, and put as much as you can into it.
And it's, the most successful network show to hit the air this season. That must feel pretty good. And you earned a Golden Globe nomination, and that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you. No, that was a huge. Thank you. A huge honor. That was a wonderful surprise, really. And I guess it felt like a collective achievement and something that we were all, I was on set when it was announced too, so it felt like something we'd all been working towards in the months prior. And I guess it's a new experience for me working on something where there is an immediate reaction. On Bates Motel, we'd film, the season, and then a couple of months it would all be released. And so it's interesting and exciting, especially for everyone who's working on it, for the crew who get to go home and watch it with their families and then come back into work the next day. It feels more alive, even though we're in Vancouver and kind of trapped in our little bubble, and perhaps I'm not as aware of how it's been received as other people are. No, I'm just in a hospital set, and then I see my big face. I'm like, that's kind of weird. Yeah.
You've been in Vancouver for a few years now, huh? Because Bates Motel was shot there? Well, I love it because I watch Dancing with the Stars and The Bachelor, and you guys lead right into that. So I just stay on my couch for an extra 4 hours on Monday nights. It's great.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, and then American Idol soon. It'll be this, and then The Good Doctor just slots on in there. No, it's lovely how people have responded to the show.
And let's talk about the medical drama. There's been a lot of medical dramas on the air for many years. Why do you think The Good Doctor is getting such great viewership? Is it because of Shaun Murphy and who he is? Or, how have you guys kind of used that medical drama, per se, to kind of flip it on its head and bring something new to the table?
I mean, of course, the success of it isn't purely down to having Shaun as the lead character, and there's such a terrific ensemble of actors. And we're all close, and everyone cares very much about this story and puts everything into it. I think in terms of Shaun, what people have been attracted to is maybe his optimism and his hope, and that we learn something from him too. I think he has an innate curiosity and an innate desire to learn and ask questions that are questions that perhaps we don't ask ourselves enough. And not that the show is, doesn't seek to be didactic and say, this is what you must feel or this is what you must think. But hopefully it sparks discussion that is useful, and especially at a time now when there is so much negativity that's so easy to come by when you turn on your television. I think there's something to be said about a character that remains hopeful about the prospect of the future of humanity.
Even last week, we saw a kind of touching episode where Shaun treats a young patient with autism as well. Talk about filming that, and that was, I think, the first time that we saw Shaun confront that side of himself as a surgeon.
Yeah, and I think he isn't necessarily the most self-aware person, and interacting with someone who also has autism, I think, compelled him to search for a little bit of self-reflection. So that was interesting, and yeah.
What is every episode, when you read it, do you get overwhelmed at all by all the medical jargon and what you have to memorize and what you have to know to play, a doctor?
Yeah, the medical jargon is, it's funny that the medicine seems to take a back seat. It sort of goes into what you were saying about why the show in general as a medical drama has been successful, because it feels like the character-driven stories are the main arc, and not that I forget the medicine, because otherwise surgeons watching the show will think, what are you saying? And we try to be genuine, but there's certain creative licenses that you have to take, and ultimately a scene in the operation room isn't really about the intricacies of the operation itself, but it's more how it fits into these characters' arcs and emotional journeys.
Now, do you think David, being the creator of House and another successful medical drama, do you think he was able to bring something special to The Good Doctor? Because I know Daniel Day Kim, it's based on a show that was in Korea, maybe?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So how did he kind of bring it to the U.S. and make it his own, using that expertise, too, from House?
Yeah, I mean, of course, he knows how to write medical dramas. I think Shaun, and the show in itself tonally is very different to House. And I guess David, he says that he's maybe has more in common with House than Dr. Shaun Murphy, and has to put his cynical side to one side when working on this. And I guess that's probably true with me too, as a Brit, with our natural cynicism. But no, the original Korean show was incredibly successful over there, but Korean dramas are only one season long, and then they kind of wrap it all up and move on to telling new stories. They don't have that same continuity as we have become accustomed to. And so whilst the pilot was very similar in structure, beyond that it became necessary to change the pace of the storyline and make sure that this was something that hopefully will be able to be on the air for a few years.
I think so. Coming from the film world too, and then diving into television, what's exciting about being a part of a television series? Because like you said, it's a big commitment. You never know how many seasons it's going to go, but you're banking on it for being on the air for a while. Where film, you're on the set for a few months and it's over. So talk about that balance, how you decide to do TV versus film or vice versa.
I guess I've never... It seems like the characters on television are, probably by dint of getting to spend more time with them, seem more compelling and richer in terms of an approach. And I guess in a personal way, I enjoy there's a certain, when you're lucky enough, as I was on Bates, to be on a television show that continued year after year, and hopefully on The Good Doctor it will be the same, at least for next season, that there's a continuity and a bond with people that you get to develop over time, as opposed to a film where you go in for 4 or 5 weeks or maybe a couple of months and do something and then move on to something else. It's nice to put down a base somewhere in terms of a city, and also just people and building relationships over time.
Yeah, like you said, living with that character for a while. Does that help you, if you came back next season with Dr. Shaun Murphy, do you feel like you know him even more and bring something extra to him, an extra layer?
I hope so. yeah, you certainly become more used to the characters over time. In terms of the research, as we were saying earlier, I feel like a lot of establishing the character and establishing the character of Shaun it's done at the beginning, that you sort of have to make bolder choices and then you're stuck with them. Shaun can't suddenly come back next season and be an entirely different person.
Be British.
Yeah, British, exactly. Why not, you know? So yes, we will see, but hopefully there will be a consistency.
Do you guys know he was British when you watched the show? You can't even tell, though. Your accent's great.
Thank you.
How do you go? Do you work with like a dialect coach for a show like this?
Yes, and I try and stay in the accent as much as possible on set, and so it becomes second nature. You don't really want to be in the middle of a scene worrying about trying to get your vowels to sound a certain way. Yeah. And there's an ease, having done it for many years, that it does become easier to slip back into. But yes, it's sort of odd speaking in a British accent now. I feel like I'm probably overly British, trying to relearn my voice, having spoken as Shaun for many months. But we're done on Thursday. I'm going back later to Vancouver, and then there's 3 more days shooting, and then we're all done. So it's so yes, the accent will be returning soon, my real accent.
Well, you're very good at accents and languages, apparently, because you can speak Arabic and French and Spanish, and that deserves a round of applause. I can't even speak English. I'm struggling right now.
Oh, thank you.
Is it true that you in college you studied Arabic and Spanish?
I did, yeah.
University.
Yes, university. I did, and I spent a bit of time living in Madrid as well as part of the course. So, although it's funny because people have been sending me. Someone said, "Oh, I've been watching The Good Doctor in Spain," and sent me this little video clip of them watching me. But the accent, which to me is very idiosyncratic and interesting in English, had become this suave, deep-voiced Spaniard in the Spanish version. It's as if I don't know quite why. It's as if the person just had, maybe it's like the generic go-to leading man in Spain, and it was like, "Hola, yo soy Dr. Shaun Murphy," but still with like the same mannerisms of the Shaun that we are used to in America. Anyway, it's a side note, but it was interesting. I guess it's just an entirely different character, but maybe that's what they go in for. I don't know.
Just shoot every scene. You do it in English, and you do it in Spanish. You can do it in Arabic and French, and then they'll never know the difference. You'll be playing all of them all over the world. Knowing and learning Arabic, what was the one reason that you wanted to learn that language, or say Spanish? And have you used it as much as you expected you would?
I haven't. I guess I should try and get into dubbing myself in various languages. But no, I mean, I would love to, in terms of the future, get the opportunity to do a film in a foreign language. That would be exciting.
Yeah, speaking of film, everybody's seen all of his work, his early work, right? Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, August Rush, Finding Neverland. What did it mean to you to be a child star? Did you always know that you wanted to be an actor when you were that age?
No, I not in terms of long term. I mean, it was something that I was enjoying at the time, but I think probably in part by growing up in London, it was easier not to be defined, like either to define myself or for others to define me purely as an actor from a young age. So I sort of carried on going to school and went off to college, university. And obviously my family were key in that, and it never felt like acting was the focus of my life growing up. Whereas maybe for other people who are growing up in LA, it's harder to get a distance from it.
Well, you kind of learned from the best. You worked with Helena Bonham Carter a few times and Johnny Depp. What was it like as a kid on set working with those actors? Because I'm sure the set itself was kind of wild with fans and things like that.
Yeah, it always felt kind of small and intimate. I mean, I guess they're, of course, incredibly well-known actors, and for good reason. They're incredibly talented. But working with them it never felt like you were working with someone who felt like they saw themselves as better than others or above others. And I guess those stories, both Finding Neverland and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with Johnny Depp were maybe big in scope, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory had big sets, but it was also a very contained environment. A lot of the time it was, a couple of people in a scene or, a smaller group. It didn't feel overwhelmingly big. It more felt small and personal, and that you were working on something on a personal level with them. But maybe Charlie and the Chocolate Factory too, because there were so few special effects and they actually built everything for real. It also had a sense of, more. I don't know. It never felt crazy. My childhood never seemed overwhelming.
As a kid, though, if you're on the set of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that must have been really cool. Was there real candy everywhere and stuff?
They were pretty much, from what I remember, it was plastic grass. They had like real versions off to the side that you could go and I guess they'd bring out when the time was right. But they built the big chocolate fall, and I think it was some toothpaste-based substance or something that they put in to make it look like chocolate. But it was there, you could have jumped in, I guess, if you wanted to.
Magic of movie making.
I never did, but yeah.
Oh, man, you should have. I wanted to hear a story about you swimming in the chocolate lake or something like that.
Over lunch break, yeah.
Do you have, like, a favorite memory from those times when you were younger where you really felt, oh, I'm totally bitten by this acting bug?
No, not in the way of feeling. It's sort of what I was going to say in answer to an earlier question and then got sidetracked by talking about something else. But it never. I was enjoying it, but it didn't seem at that age that this was the only thing that I wanted to do, or the only thing that I could do, or necessarily what I wanted to do forever. I think that's why going to university was important too, to take a few years away from acting and make sure that if I were to then come back to it as an adult, that it was a choice. I didn't want to feel like I'd fallen into it without really deciding that this was what I wanted to do, and I guess be here at 26 and thinking, oh, I could have done so many other things. I never quite gave myself the chance. So yes, I guess that was the arc for me.
Yeah, and you did study law too, right? You could just become a lawyer in a few years if you.
Yeah, exactly. You never know.
Act.
Yeah, not a surgeon. I'm not. The temptation is to think that you've become really good at. I said to someone earlier, oh, we've got a couple more surgeries left this week, as if like I'm genuinely this surgeon who's like popping in and out of. We're probably more casual about it than the real life surgeons. Yeah.
Well, I do want to open it up to some audience questions. Here we go, right here.
First of all, bravo. This show is tremendous. Your acting nuance is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I've seen every episode. And which one was your favorite to do? Which did you have the most fun with?
It's a good question. The pilot was great, because I'll just go and list them all off. The pilot was interesting, I guess, because it was the first one. I really liked, I think it was the 5th episode, where the young patient comes in who reminds him of his brother, and that seemed like a great emotional arc for Shaun. The mid-season finale, where there was more of a breakdown and we see him cracking with Dr. Glassman. The road trip was also exciting, and Paige Sparrow, who plays Leah, she's fantastic, and doing scenes with her were a real joy. And then I guess there's been a couple, like the one that we're shooting now, which is the finale of the whole thing. I think will be one of the best ones, as long as we don't mess it up somehow. But on the page, David has written a great story, so hopefully we'll do it justice.
So he loves every episode.
No, that was only 4. That was good.
No, that was good. Those were, my favorite too.
Oh.
Hi, how are you? It's
Hi,
a pleasure.
how are you doing?
I was just wondering if you do something specific to transition, as deliciously dark as Norman was there anything that you do to let go of that to go on to Dr. Murphy? Because clearly they're not in the same realm.
No.
And 3 days, you said, right?
Yeah, it was a funny transition. I never found Norman to be as dark as others did. I mean, of course, he was killing people, and he was he was working himself up, and maybe there was like a certain emotional exhaustion that went into it. But almost at the end of every day, you kind of felt good about yourself. It was like, I killed a few people. No, you more feel like you've got this like pent up energy out of you. Maybe now that I'm, playing such a genuinely good person, this darker side will come out in my real life as I don't have an outlet for it. Yeah, exactly. But no, there were no particular tricks as such, or it's hard to pinpoint them. I think what both shows have in common, but maybe it's more obvious in Bates Motel, was the dark humor, and I think that's what kept it alive and added a different layer to the show and stopped it from being too overwhelmingly dark or miserable. And Vera, who's evidently fantastic, she brought that to the show from the very beginning, and I think that's what made it pop and spark in those early stages especially.
Yeah, you and Vera were fabulous together, right? Oh, I love that show.
Oh, she's brilliant.
Hey, maybe down the line you could just bring Norman back. He's still killing people, right?
Yeah, he could just, we do toy with the idea of doing like the both of them in whatever form of heaven that it is, and they're like, wandering around like on a Hawaii beach with this shack that they've set up shop in, and yeah, maybe there's a few more episodes left in it somewhere. Or convince Vera to come back in disguise and, be a patient.
Yeah.
But yes, it would have to be some heavy form of disguise as not to really mess with people's heads. Yeah.
We love that stuff, though. Mess with our heads. Yeah. Who's next?
We had Nesta directing, though, for one episode this year, Nesta Carbonell. So that was nice. And we've got a lot of the same crew who are on, because both are filmed in Vancouver, who were on Bates Motel, who are now working on The Good Doctor. So the family feels somewhat intact, yeah.
That's good. Vancouver's your new town, so.
It seems to be, yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
So between The Good Doctor and Bates Motel, did you have a preference when it came to filming, or are the two shows completely different that you can't even compare them?
It's hard to compare them, and they feel very different in my head too, because Bates Motel is something that's now finished and obviously was a 5-year process, whereas we're just kind of getting into The Good Doctor. But yeah, The Good Doctor feels immediate and exciting and alive, whereas Bates Motel feels like this great nostalgic memory, and then which we delve into a few times on set. And Vera's still out in Vancouver, so I get to see her more often than not. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. All right, we have time for one more. Here we go.
I was curious, looking towards the future, what might a dream role of yours be?
It's a good question, and I probably don't have a good answer to it. I don't know, because I would never have thought a year ago, or maybe it's just over a year ago. David Shaw and I were laughing that it had been our anniversary last week or the week before when we first sat down and met, and it's crazy how time goes so quickly. But it's hard. Like, I would never imagine doing Bates Motel that this character would come along, and maybe the best roles and best characters are those that end up surprising you and not being something that you had expected. But something different and something new, and it's hard to. I'd also love to continue to, develop things of my own and be involved. I mean, I was lucky enough to write and direct on Bates Motel, and hopefully to do that as well on The Good Doctor in the future, and continue to explore that area of things whilst working on the show.
I guess it all depends too what kind of scripts come across your desk.
Yeah, exactly. But I've been lucky so far, so hopefully long may it continue.
Very lucky. Well, Monday, The Good Doctors are on Monday at 10 p.m. Make sure to watch it. How many episodes do we have left?
It comes back tonight after the Winter Olympic break, and then I think there's 4 left tonight, and then 4 more. Yeah.
Can't give us any spoilers, right? With that finale you're shooting. Just lots of surgeries, apparently, guys. That's all we know.
I guess maybe no. I know there are some surgeries. There's I guess Shaun has to deal with a more personal tragedy that ends up coming his way over the course of the next few episodes. So I won't tell you when that ends up being, but that's yeah, that's sort of the next big place for him to get to.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We've loved
Thank you for having
Thank you all
me.
for joining us, too.
Thank you.
This is fun.